since we have two datas, we iterate through zeros and ones. So meaning the first index we have here is 0, namely the first item of the array. The second iteration, the index becomes 1, meaning the second, which is the opponent. As you can see here, only the first item is green, the other is white, because we had explicitly declared only that the first item is gonna be green. Next, we're gonna go to our dictionary. So we have here two items, TWL and CSW. So as you can see here, before we rendered our page, I mean our JSX, we also have a useState for dictionary. So we had items for TWL and CSW, but the default item is TWL. Same pattern, we just need to show to the React memory or the DOM what we intend to store so that later on we can show it if the need arises. So this is triggered by a select component HTML, which lets you choose one item inside those. So if we click here one item like CSW, our dictionary changes depends on the situation. So one thing that we need to notice inside here, this cancel, if we can see in our code, cancel. So here in our cancel button, we are being shown a link where this cancel button is redirected to slash. So this slash means the index or the root. So meaning if we press this cancel button, we're gonna go back to our index or our slash. Let's try it. We're going back to our home. Okay, just a subtle idea that we need to be aware of. So that is called routing. Every time we use links. So this is a feature of React wherein React Router DOM we are using link. So since we are using link through the React Router DOM, we're gonna need to define what is routing. So routing is a term in React wherein you're changing pages without refreshing the website. As you can see here, we're not changing, we're not reloading the page, but our page that is being shown is being changed depending on what is routed inside our URL. So every time we click something, this is being shown to our React router and different page is being shown on the screen. Of course, no refresh. That's why React is so fast. Next, navigation. So since we are introducing our React router DOM, we're done with link. Right now, we're gonna introduce ourselves to our use navigate hook. So you can see here, create game, right? So this triggers a use navigate hook. So let's see what create game looks like. So here, create game with a class. We are using button on click navigate games slash wordmaster. So basically a navigate hook is a function that changes the page using code. So for example, navigate slash games slash wordmaster. Every time we click this link, we're gonna be redirected to another page. So as you can see here, we are using two different kinds of hooks. We're using links. We are using navigate. So basically, link is like a general anchor tag inside HTML, wherein we just really are, as usual, redirecting to a page. While use navigate is being used in the same manner if you need to have more additional code or logic before you are redirecting to a page, we are using use navigate. Or if you need to have some form validation logics, form processing, etc. and etc. We are using use navigate. So another thing on their differences, links are used when you know exactly where you are going. For example, you're going to match history. You're going to history page. There are no other things that you need to do. Exactly go to the history page. But when you are trying to go to create game, there's some processing that you need to do. Wherein this data, the name, the opponent name, the created dictionary, we need to process those, right? So there's no assurance once we create this game, this is gonna be successful. We need to add some validations and logics and process some codes. That's why use navigate is the way, or the hook that you're going to use. So just for a short recap, we didn't just memorize React. We learned how to trace information. We started with the interface, then we followed the data through our code, then let the code answer our questions along the way. So that's exactly how I approach our project, into a skill that you can apply to any React code base or projects that you try to understand along the way. For example, when you go to another company and you are trying to read other people's code, there's an exceptional gap between a skill that lets you just write code and reading code is something else that you need to also understand. So in layman's term, in summary, we need to understand along the way components are reusable piece of UI, while JSX is the compiled version of JavaScript and HTML like structure that lets React turn the intended code to an HTML or browser ready interface. States are way to store information to React memory. The setter, the function that lets you change the useState. Event is something that the user does. Event handlers are codes that run when an event is triggered. Props are information that is being passed down from one component to another. Map is a JavaScript function that lets you loop through an array and create UI for those items. Routing is moving between pages in a single page React application without reloading the page. Use Navigate is a React router hook for changing pages with an additional logic or program inside it.